The night was cold, colder than anything she had ever felt before. The alien girl sat on the broken stones of her village, her small body shivering as the wind cut through her thin clothes. The moonlight fell over the ruins, showing the broken houses, the shattered walls, and the lifeless ground that once carried laughter. Now everything was silent, a silence that pressed heavy on her chest. She had lost everything. Her parents had been taken by the fire of war. Her friends vanished into the chaos. Her people scattered into the darkness. She was the only one left, or at least it felt that way. She hugged her knees to her chest, trying to make herself small, as if shrinking could keep her safe from the cruel eyes that hunted survivors. Her stomach ached with hunger, but she had no strength to search for food. The last piece of bread she had eaten was 2 days ago, taken from a broken shelf in one of the abandoned homes. Her throat was dry, her lips cracked, and her eyes heavy with tears that would no longer fall. She had cried so much that her tears had run dry. Now only a hollow pain sat inside her chest. In the distance, she thought she heard voices. Loud, metallic footsteps. Her heart jumped. Were they soldiers, the ones who had burned her home? Or were they scavengers who would sell her body to traders? She pressed herself against the broken wall, holding her breath, waiting for the sound to pass. For a moment she believed she would be caught. But the steps moved away into the night. She let out a shaky breath, but her relief did not last long. The sky above was filled with stars, bright and endless. She looked at them, wondering if her parents could see her from beyond. Her mother once told her that the stars held the souls of the fallen, that no one was ever truly alone if they looked up, but tonight the stars gave her no comfort. They only reminded her of how small she was, how helpless she had become. She wrapped her arms tighter around her body, trying to stay awake. Fear told her that if she closed her eyes, she might never open them again. The cold was biting, and sleep was dangerous. Yet her body betrayed her. Her head grew heavy, her eyelids weak. She fought to stay conscious, whispering softly to herself, "Don't sleep, don't sleep." Then she heard it, a sound that froze her blood. Footsteps, steady and slow, different from the ones before. These steps were heavier, echoing against the broken ground. Her heart pounded. She wanted to run, but her legs refused to move. She pressed herself tighter to the wall, every muscle stiff with fear. The sound grew closer, closer still. A shadow stretched across the rubble, long and tall. It was a human. She could see the outline of his figure under the dim light. Broad, shoulders, a strong frame. His steps were careful, but each one brought him nearer to where she hid. Her breath caught in her throat. Her people had told her stories about humans. Some said they were merciless, cold as machines. Others said they were unpredictable, dangerous when cornered. She did not know which kind this one was. All she knew was that she was too weak to fight, too weak to escape. The human stopped just a few steps away, his head turned, scanning the ruins. She thought his eyes might have caught hers in the shadows. Her heart screamed inside her chest. She wanted to stay hidden, but she knew he had seen her. Slowly, the human crouched down. His hand moved toward her, not fast, not rough, but gentle. She flinched, pressing back against the wall, expecting harm. Instead, he pulled off the heavy coat from his shoulders and held it out to her. She stared at it, her mind confused. Why would he do this? Why would a human give warmth to someone like her? She shook her head, whispering, "No, why?" Her voice cracked, broken from thirst and fear. The human did not answer right away. He only kept his hand steady, the coat stretched out toward her. His face was calm, not cruel. His eyes, in the faint light, carried something she did not understand, not hate, not anger, but something softer. Finally, he spoke. His voice was low but firm. No one should be left in the cold. The words hit her harder than the wind. For the first time since the war began, she felt something strange inside her chest, a warmth that was not from fire but from hope. Her small hand slowly reached out. Trembling, she touched the coat, pulled it to her chest, and for the first time in many nights she felt warmth. She looked up at him, still scared, still unsure. But inside her heart, a tiny flame of trust began to flicker, and that flame was enough to make her whisper one fragile word. Why? The human only answered with silence, but he stayed there, close enough so she would not feel alone. And in that broken night, in the ruins of everything she had lost, an alien girl found. The first sign that she might not be forgotten, not while this human was near. The girl sat with the heavy coat around her shoulders. The fabric smelled of smoke and dust, but to her it felt like the softest blanket in the galaxy. She held it tight, her small fingers trembling, afraid that if she let go, it might vanish. Like everything else she had once loved, the human stood above her, tall and silent, his shadow falling across the ruined wall where she sat hidden. He did not move quickly. His steps were slow, careful, like someone who was trying not to frighten a wounded animal. His eyes studied her, but there was no sharpness in them, no cruelty. She had expected harshness, expected a strike or a command, but instead, he knelt down, lowering himself until his gaze was level with hers. Her throat burned, dry from days without water, but somehow words escaped her lips. "Why?" she whispered again, her voice weak and breaking. She did not understand. No one had given her kindness since the firestorm had swallowed her home. The human's face softened. He placed his hand on the ground between them, palm open, showing it was empty. No weapon, only flesh and warmth. "Because no one should be alone like this," he said in a steady tone. The words echoed in her mind, simple words, but they carried weight. She wanted to believe them, yet fear kept her heart locked. Her people had told stories of humans, stories filled with betrayal, conquest, and cold justice. Was this one different, or was it a trick? The wind blew harder, the night growing darker. She shivered again even with the coat. The human noticed and without asking reached into a small pack on his back. He pulled out a flask and placed it carefully in front of her. He did not push it into her hands, only set it down and slid it closer. Her lips parted, thirst screamed inside her, but still she hesitated. What if it was poison? What if it was a trap? Her body argued against her fear. Her hands reached out slowly, and she brought the flask to her lips. The first sip burned, sharp and strange, but it was water. Real water. Her chest shook as she drank more, tears finally spilling again. Not from pain, but from relief. When she lowered the flask, her eyes met his. There was no laughter in them, no mockery, only a quiet patience, as if he understood what it meant for her to drink after so long. "Thank you," she whispered. The words felt heavy, awkward on her tongue, but they were true. The human gave a small nod, then glanced around the ruins. His jaw tightened, as if he expected danger to step out from the shadows at any moment. He looked back at her. "This place isn't safe, you can't stay here." Her heart raced, fear surged through her veins. Was he planning to take her somewhere else? Somewhere worse? Her thin fingers clutched the coat tighter. "No. No, leave me," she begged. "I don't want to go." His brows drew together, not in anger, but in concern. "If you stay, they'll find you," he said firmly. His voice carried certainty, as if he had seen it happen many times before. She froze, remembering the metallic footsteps earlier, the hunters, the soldiers, the ones who killed without mercy. He was right, they would find her. Still, going with him meant stepping into the unknown. The human extended his hand, not forcing, just offering. His palm was large, scarred, the hand of someone who had fought battles and carried burdens. The girl stared at it, her stomach twisted with fear. Her heart pounded in her ears. She wanted to run, but her legs were too weak, and deep inside, another voice whispered something new. Trust. Slowly, shakily, she reached out. Her small hand trembled as it hovered above his. For a moment she pulled back, but then the memory of her mother's last embrace filled her mind. She needed warmth. She needed someone. Her fingers touched his palm. His hand closed gently around hers, firm but not crushing, steady, protective. It felt strange, alien, yet safe. Tears welled in her eyes again, and this time she did not fight them. The human stood, helping her rise to her feet. Her knees wobbled, her body weak, but his hand supported her, guiding her up. She leaned on him, still clutching the coat. Her legs felt like they might give out, but he did not let her fall. They moved through the ruins together, his steps strong, hers fragile. She glanced around nervously at the shadows. Every corner seemed to hide danger. He kept her close, scanning the dark as if ready to fight whatever might appear. When they reached the edge of the ruined village, she looked back one last time. The broken walls, the burned homes, the place of her childhood, it was all gone. She felt her chest tighten with sorrow, but when she looked at the human beside her, she realized she was not completely lost. The night stretched wide before them, endless and unknown, but she no longer walked alone. For the first time since her world had crumbled, she was holding a stranger's hand, and though she did not yet know his name or his heart, something inside her whispered that this human might be her only chance to survive. Her lips parted, and she whispered so faintly that the wind almost carried the words away. "Don't let go." The human tightened his grip ever so slightly, and though he did not answer, his silence spoke louder than words. He would not let go, not tonight, not while she needed him. The girl's legs trembled with every step. The human walked. Beside her, his strong frame steady, his hand never letting hers slip. The ruins of the village slowly disappeared behind them, swallowed by shadows and silence. The night grew colder, but she felt a strange warmth inside, not from the coat alone, but from the steady presence of the man who guided her through the darkness. The path ahead led through tall grass and broken trees. The ground was uneven, littered with ash and stones. Her bare feet ached, but she bit her lip and endured. She did not want to seem weak, not in front of him. Every time she stumbled, his arm reached out quickly, keeping her upright. His touch was firm but careful, never harsh, never cruel. Hours seemed to pass as they moved through the wilderness. The girl's eyelids grew heavy, but fear kept her awake. She whispered, "Where are we going?" Her voice was faint, as if she feared the night itself might hear her. The human glanced at her, his face half hidden in the shadows. "Somewhere safe," he replied. His tone was short, but not unkind. His eyes scanned the darkness, as if danger lurked in every corner. She wondered if he was always this careful or if it was only because of her. After some time, the trees grew thicker. Their branches blocked the moonlight, making the world darker. The girl's heart raced, her grip on his hand tightening. She did not like the shadows. She did not like the way the forest seemed to watch them. Still, the human moved without fear, his steps sure and confident. She took strength from his courage. Finally, they reached a small hill covered in tangled roots. At its base was a narrow opening, so small she would not have noticed it if he had not stopped there. He crouched, pulling back a piece of heavy cloth that had been hidden under the earth. Behind it was a passage, dark but dry. Her eyes widened. "What is that?" she whispered. "A shelter," he answered. "Come." He guided her inside. The passage was, short, leading to a hidden bunker beneath the ground. The air was damp but warmer than the outside. The walls were lined with old metal panels and storage crates. There was a faint glow from a small lamp on the floor. Its light revealed a rough bed, a water container, and supplies stacked neatly. The girl stepped inside slowly, her eyes wide. She had never seen such a place before. It was not beautiful, but it felt safe. Safer than the ruins. Safer than the cold night above. The human closed the entrance behind them, sealing the cloth with stones and branches. Then he turned back to her. His voice was calm. "You can rest here. No one will find us tonight." Her body wanted to collapse, but her mind still doubted. She looked at him, hugging the coat around herself. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Her voice cracked. "Why help me?" For a moment he said nothing. He opened one of the crates, pulling out a small packet. He tore it open and placed something in her hands. It was soft bread, rough and stale, but to her it smelled like heaven. She stared at it, her stomach twisting, her mouth watered, yet she hesitated again. She raised her eyes to his face, searching for lies, for traps. He only nodded. Eat. Her hands shook as she took the first bite. The taste filled her mouth, simple but warm. She closed her eyes, tears spilling down her cheeks. She chewed slowly, afraid she might wake up from a dream. The human sat down across from her, his back against the wall. He watched silently, not rushing her, not taking his eyes off the entrance. She noticed the tension in his shoulders. He was tired, but he refused to rest. He stayed awake for her, guarding her. After finishing half the bread, she lowered it, whispering, "This is the first food since—" Her words broke. She could not finish. The memories of fire and screams choked her. He gave a slow nod, his expression heavy. "I know," he said softly. He looked down at his scarred hands, then back at her. "I lost people too." His words surprised her. She thought humans never spoke of loss. She thought they were cold machines of war. But his voice carried sorrow, real sorrow. Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she saw him not as a stranger, but as someone wounded too. The silence stretched, but it was not empty. It was gentle, filled with the sound of her quiet breaths and the faint hum of the lamp. Her body began to relax. The food warmed her stomach. The coat warmed her skin, and his presence warmed something deeper inside her heart. She curled on the small bed, pulling the coat tighter. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Will you stay?" The human looked at her, his jaw firm, his eyes steady. He did not speak, but he moved closer, sitting on the ground beside her bed. His back rested against the metal wall, his hand resting on the hilt of a weapon. She saw that he had chosen a place where he could protect her, where he could see the entrance and her at the same time. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, the first in many days. She closed her eyes, the sound of his breathing steady beside her. For the first time since the flames had stolen her world, she felt safe enough to sleep. And as she drifted into dreams, one thought lingered in her heart like a fragile flame. Maybe she had not lost everything after all. Maybe, in this hidden refuge, she had found the beginning of something new, something she did not yet understand, but desperately needed. The night passed slowly in the hidden shelter. The girl slept deeply for the first time in many days, her small body curled under the human's coat. Her breathing was soft, almost peaceful. The human sat awake beside her, his back against the cold wall, his weapon resting in his lap. His eyes never closed, scanning the shadows as if danger might appear at any moment. When morning came, faint light slipped through the cracks in the cloth that covered the entrance. The girl stirred, her eyes opening slowly. For a moment she forgot where she was, fear rushing back, but then she saw him sitting there, still awake, still watching over her. Her chest eased. She whispered, "You didn't sleep." He gave a small shake of his head. "Not safe yet," he said quietly. His voice was tired but steady. She sat up, the coat sliding down her shoulders. Hunger stirred in her stomach. And before she could speak, he reached into a crate and handed her a small packet of dried food. She accepted it carefully, her eyes never leaving his face as she ate. The human leaned closer to the entrance, his ears sharp. He frowned, the lines on his face deepening. The girl froze, her heart skipping. "What is it?" she whispered. "Voices," he muttered. His tone was low, tense. "They're searching." Her hand shook as she clutched the food. The memories of fire and screams rushed back into her mind. She whispered, "They'll find me. They'll kill you." He looked at her, his eyes calm but firm. "They won't touch you." His words carried steel. Outside, the sound grew louder, metallic, boots striking against the earth, harsh voices barking orders. She could not understand all the words, but she caught enough to know. They were looking for survivors, looking for her. She trembled, pressing her hands against her ears as if that could silence the terror. Her voice cracked. "You should leave me. If they find me here, you'll die too." The human's jaw tightened. His hand gripped his weapon. "If they want you, they'll have to go through me." Her chest ached at his words. No one had ever spoken like that for her before. Not since. Her parents. She wanted to believe him, but fear whispered that he was only one man and they were many. The voices outside drew closer. A shadow passed near the entrance. Her breath stopped. She clung to the coat like it was a shield, praying silently. The human pressed a finger to his lips, telling her to stay silent. He crouched low, his body between her and the entrance. His muscles were tense, ready to spring into action. Minutes felt like hours. The footsteps moved past. The hill, the voices fading slowly. Still, the human did not relax. His eyes remained fixed on the entrance. Only when the sounds finally vanished into the distance did he breathe out slowly. The girl let out a shaky breath, tears spilling from her eyes. She whispered, "They'll keep looking, they won't stop." He nodded. "That's why we can't stay here long." Her heart sank. The shelter had felt safe, but now she realized it was only a fragile hiding place. Sooner or later the hunters would return. The human stood, moving to check the supplies. He packed what little food and water they had into a small bag. Then he turned to her, holding out his hand again. "We move before nightfall." Her small fingers curled into fists. "But where?" she asked. "There is nowhere left." His eyes softened. "There's always somewhere," he said, though his voice carried a shadow of doubt. That day passed in silence. The girl stayed close to him, jumping at every sound outside. Each distant echo of boots or engines made her heart race. She hated herself for being so afraid, but she could not stop. At dusk, the human carefully lifted the cloth from the entrance and peered out. The land was quiet, too quiet. He motioned for her to follow. Together they stepped into the open air. The world outside felt larger, colder, and more dangerous than ever. She kept close to his side, gripping his hand tightly. Her eyes darted at every movement, every shifting shadow. They walked through broken fields, past blackened trees and over cracked stone paths. The human moved with purpose, but even he could not hide the tension in his steps. He knew they were being hunted. At one point they heard voices again, closer than before. The human quickly pulled her into the remains of a collapsed building, pressing a finger to her lips. She hid behind him, barely daring to breathe. Through a gap in the wall, she saw armored figures moving across the field. Their weapons glinted. In the fading light, one of them stopped, scanning the ground. Her heart nearly stopped. She thought they would be caught. But then a distant signal called them away, and the figures turned, disappearing into the distance. She sagged against the wall, her body trembling with relief. The human placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. His eyes met hers, and for a moment she felt braver. They continued through the night, walking until her legs nearly gave out. At last he guided her into a dense forest where the trees grew tall and thick, their branches tangled together, hiding them in shadow. The human finally allowed her to rest. He crouched beside her, his voice quiet but certain. "They'll keep hunting, but as long as I breathe, they won't take you." The girl looked at him, her chest aching with something she could not name. Fear still lived inside her, but so did something else, something fragile but strong, she whispered. "Then I'll follow you, wherever you go." The human gave a faint nod, his gaze scanning the dark forest ahead. The hunt was only beginning, but neither of them would face it alone. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. The girl lay against the roots of a tall tree, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. The human stood nearby, his weapon in hand, scanning the darkness with sharp eyes. He had not slept in 2 nights, yet he showed no weakness. Every sound made him tense. Every flicker of light in the distance made his grip tighten. The girl tried to rest, but fear would not leave her. Her thoughts returned to the voices that had searched the ruins, the soldiers who would never stop hunting. She hugged the coat around her small body and whispered, "They'll find us." The human glanced at her, his expression steady. "Not tonight," he said. His voice carried confidence. But inside he knew the truth. Danger was closing in. The hours crept by until the moon climbed high. The girl drifted into shallow sleep. Her breathing uneven, the human remained alert, listening to the forest, and then it came, the faint crack of a branch, too heavy to be an animal, followed by the soft hum of engines in the distance. He moved quickly, crouching beside her, shaking her shoulder gently. "Wake up," he whispered. Her eyes opened wide, fear flashing instantly. She looked around. "What is it?" "They're here," he said. Before she could answer, a sharp beam of light cut through the trees. Shadows danced across the forest floor. Voices followed, shouting commands. The girl clutched his arm, trembling. "What do we do?" He pulled her close, his jaw tight. "We run!" But before they could move, the first shot rang out. A bolt of red energy sliced through the branches. Above them, fire burst to life, the trees igniting. Flames roared, spreading quickly through the dry wood. The night turned into chaos. The human grabbed her hand, pulling her through the burning trees. His steps were strong, hers stumbled. She gasped for air as smoke filled her lungs. Sparks bit at her skin. Behind them, armored figures closed in, their weapons glowing. Another blast struck the ground beside them. Dirt and fire exploded upward, throwing her to the ground. She coughed, fear choking her. The human knelt, lifting her to her feet again, his voice harsh but steady. "Stay with me." They ran, weaving through the flames. The girl's legs burned with pain, but she refused to let go of his hand. The fire crackled around them, smoke thickening. Every breath hurt, every step felt heavier. Yet the human never slowed, never looked back. The hunters shouted, their voices growing closer. Energy bolts flew, past, lighting the night in flashes. The human returned fire, his weapon loud and sharp. One enemy fell, another stumbled, but still more pushed forward. The girl's heart pounded, terror screaming inside her. Yet even in the chaos, she noticed him. His body shielding hers, every move he made to keep her alive. He fought like a wall of stone, standing between her and death itself. They reached a clearing, the fire spreading fast around its edges. The human pulled her behind a fallen log, pressing her low to the ground. Shots tore through the air above them. He breathed heavily, sweat and ash on his face. She looked at him, her eyes wide. "They won't stop," she whispered. "You'll die for me." His gaze met hers, fierce and unbroken. "If I die, it will not be in vain," he said. His hand tightened on his weapon. "But I'm not planning on dying." Tears burned her eyes. But inside, something shifted. He was not her blood, not her people, yet he fought harder for her than anyone ever had. Her chest filled with a strange strength. When the soldiers moved closer, she felt the spark of power deep inside. Her body trembled, her hands glowing faintly. She had never used her gift since the night of the fire. Her mother once told her it was dangerous, that it must stay hidden. But now, with death closing in, she could no longer stay silent. She raised, her small hands light bursting outward. A wave of energy slammed into the attackers, throwing two of them back into the fire. The forest lit up with blinding brilliance. The human turned, shocked, but only for a moment. Then he nodded as if her gift was no burden, only another weapon for their survival. Together they fought, his shots precise, her bursts of light scattering. The enemy. The night shook with fire and fury. The hunters screamed, retreating as the flames consumed the forest around them. At last, silence fell. The girl collapsed to her knees, trembling. Her chest heaved as the last of the light faded from her hands. She looked up at him, fear and shame in her eyes. "I didn't want you to see. I didn't want you to know." The human knelt before her, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. His eyes held no fear, only respect. "You saved us," he said. His voice carried weight. "Don't ever be ashamed of that." Her lips trembled. Tears spilled down her cheeks. But in her heart, for the first time, she felt pride. She was no longer only a burden. She had fought beside him. The flames still burned around them, but the enemy was gone. The human helped her stand, holding her steady, his voice low but certain. "We can't stay. More will come." She nodded, clutching his arm. Her fear had not vanished, but it had changed. It was no longer the fear of being helpless. It was the fear of losing him. Together they walked into the smoke-filled night. fire behind them, uncertainty ahead. Yet their bond had grown stronger in the flames, and though the hunt was not over, they now stood as more than a stranger and a survivor. They stood as two who would fight together no matter what came. The smoke from the burning forest clung to their skin as they moved through the night. The girl coughed softly, her lungs still raw from the fire. The human kept a steady hand on her shoulder, guiding her through the dark terrain. His steps were sure even though he had not rested for days. Her legs trembled, but she forced herself forward, not wanting him to carry all the weight alone. When they reached a small stream at the edge of the woods, he finally stopped. The cool water reflected the faint glow of the stars. He crouched down, filling a metal flask and handing it to her. She took it with both hands, drinking greedily. Water ran down her chin, but she did not care. It was life. The human washed the ash from his face, his eyes scanning the distance even as he rested. The girl sat close, her small body leaning against a rock. For a moment there was silence, only the sound of water rushing over stones. She whispered, "You could have left me. You almost died for me." He looked at her, his gaze steady. "I told you before," he said, his voice low. "If they want you, they'll have to go through me." Her chest tightened. Her people had always told her humans were selfish, cruel, yet this one risked everything without asking for anything in return. She wanted to understand why, but the answer was locked behind the calm strength in his eyes. The night grew colder. He took off his coat once more and wrapped it around her shoulders. She clutched it close, not just for warmth, but because it smelled of him, of smoke and earth, a reminder that she was not alone. She watched him as he sat nearby, his back against a tree. His body was strong, but his shoulders sagged with exhaustion. She whispered, "You need sleep." He shook his head. "Not safe yet." Her brows furrowed. She wanted to argue, but instead, she slid closer, curling against his side. His body tensed for a moment, then eased. She whispered, "Then I'll stay awake with you." A faint smile touched his lips, but he said nothing. Still, the warmth of her presence seemed to ease the weight on him. As the hours passed, she found herself whispering stories, fragments of her past. She told him about her mother's lullabies, about the toy her father had carved from wood, about the laughter that once filled her village. Her voice cracked often, but he listened to every word. His silence was not cold. It was the silence of someone who cared, someone who honored her memories. When her words faltered, he spoke quietly of his own past. He told her about his home, far away, about the fields he used to run through as a boy, about a brother he had lost in battle. His voice grew rough, but he did not turn away from the pain. He let her see it, and she realized then that he was not unbreakable. He carried wounds too. Their bond deepened in that silence, built on loss and shared sorrow, but also on something stronger: trust. As dawn broke, faint light filtered through the trees. The girl woke from a short sleep to find him still beside her. His weapon lay across his knees, his head bowed but not fully asleep. She reached out with a trembling hand and touched his arm. He opened his eyes instantly, alert, but when he saw it was her, his gaze softened. "You don't always have to guard me," she whispered. "I'll stay with you even if the world burns again." His eyes held hers for a long moment, and though he said nothing, she felt the weight of his promise. He would never leave her. Later that day, they continued their journey. Their steps were slower, their bodies heavy, but they stayed side by side. The forest gave way to rocky hills, and from the high ground they saw movement in the valley below. Soldiers marching, machines, scanning. The hunt had not ended. Fear returned to her eyes. She gripped his arm, whispering, "They'll catch us." He looked down at her, his voice calm. "Not while I'm here." She wanted to believe him, and for the first time she truly did. His presence was a shield stronger than any wall. That evening, as they rested beneath a cliff, she leaned against him, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. He did not push her away. Instead, he shifted, so she could be more comfortable. She whispered, "I thought I had no one left, but now—" Her words trailed off. "But now you're not alone," he finished for her. His voice was soft, but it carried truth. Her lips trembled, and she smiled faintly, the first real smile since the war began. For the first time in her life, she felt she had a family again, not by blood, but by bond. The world outside still hunted them. Danger was closing in. But in that quiet moment beneath the fading light, the girl realized something important. She was no longer just surviving. She was living again. Because the human beside her had given her back more than hope. He had given her a reason to keep moving forward. And as she drifted into sleep against his side, one thought remained clear in her fragile heart. If the universe tried to take him away, she would fight for him, just as he fought for her. The night sky was heavy with clouds as they rested at the base of the cliff. The girl leaned against the human's side, her small frame wrapped in his coat. Her breathing was calm, but her dreams twisted with fear. The human stayed awake, his eyes on the shadows moving in the valley below. He could see the faint glow of enemy lights, growing closer with every hour. He knew the hunters would not give up. They had followed through fire, through ruins, through the endless forest. And now they were tightening the circle. He checked his weapon, the barrel worn but still ready, his jaw clenched as he prepared for what was to come. The girl stirred, waking suddenly as if she felt the weight in the air. Her eyes widened as she saw the distant lights. "They've found us," she whispered, her voice shook. He nodded, not lying, not softening the truth. "Yes," he said quietly. "But they won't take you." Tears stung her eyes. She clutched his sleeve. "You can't fight them all." Her voice cracked. "You'll die." His gaze met hers, steady and unbroken. "Then I'll die protecting you," he said. His words carried no fear, only certainty. She shook her head desperately. "No, I don't want you to die, please. Please don't leave me." He placed his hand gently on her cheek, the warmth of his touch calming her trembling. "I promised you. No one should be left alone. Not you." Before she could answer, the first shot rang out. A burst of energy struck the rock above them, spraying dust and stone. The girl screamed, and the human pulled her into his arms, shielding her body with his own. His back pressed hard against the cliff as more shots lit up the night. Soldiers emerged from the darkness, their armor glowing, their weapons raised. They surrounded the cliff, their voices loud and merciless. The human lifted his weapon, returning fire. His shots were precise, taking down two of them, but more pressed forward.